All right, we're going over System TES, Talmud Eser Sefirot, Part 1, Tzimtzum, Restriction, and Kav Line, Inner Reflection. And today we're going to be going over Chapter 4. We'll go very quickly over the concepts again. So as we do on each session, just to refresh the rules to understand Talmud Eser Sefirot or any other Kabbalah material. The first rule is to understand that we're not talking about reality, which is unnecessary. Rather, we're talking about perception, which makes it necessary for our advancement. The next rule is that we don't think that it's talking about the past of something that we already went through, let's say breaking the vessels. We haven't gone through it. It's impossible. Rather, we're learning about states we're going to go through in our future, and that's how we make it possible. And then finally, secrets is when we think it's talking about others, like the creature or the vessels or anything like that. And the idea is that we make it personal. We disclose it to ourselves when we understand it's talking about ourselves. So the idea is that it states that we go through in our perception in our future. Let's move on. We'll quickly go over all the phases. I've given enough time in the actual explanation, so I'm just going to go over the actual names, and if there's no questions, we'll continue. So in phase 1, when we're born into humanity, this is talking about, of course, we're talking about the perception. We have 1.1, which is unformed humanity, which is desires for food, sex, and family. Then we have 1.2, which is chaos humanity, desires for money, honor, and knowledge. Then we get our passive point in the heart, which is 1.3, darkness humanity, where we look for religion and mysticism as a solution. Then you have 1.4, which is spirit humanity, which is the desire for Kabbalah. Then you have the Chevra Ochanit, which is the spiritual society. At the beginning, you're in 2.1, unformed society, which is society preparation, which is connection. Then you have 2.2, chaos society, which is mutual guarantee. Then you get the active point in the heart, which is 2.3, darkness society, the society limitation. Then 2.4, the spirit society, is when we start to clean concepts, understanding that the problem is not that we're reading the material. The problem is that we don't understand what we're reading. We don't understand the concepts, the names, the language. We read words like bestowal and reception. We don't actually understand what it's talking about. Then we reach phase 3, the kfutza, the group. 3.1 is unformed group, where we have the correct goal of becoming the creator, and we have focus on that. 3.2, the chaos group, when we start to make our concepts that we cleaned emotional. 3.3, the darkness group, is when we reach our pain point based on our class. 3.4, spirit group, is when we have anticipation because we know how we're actually going to cross the barrier, which is by growing our ego. Then we reach the phase 4, Yichidei Gula, individual phase, where we have 4.1, which is unformed individual, which are doubts about the concepts that we've made emotional. 4.2, chaos individual, is when we take responsibility for the entire world to receive in our reality that we're manifesting. 4.3, darkness individual, is when we understand that we have no we have no state of bestowal. Rather, we only have actions of bestowal, and we have to feel that. We don't have the state of bestowal, so we feel vulnerable. Then 4.4, spirit individual, where we, at the end of it, reach excitement and elevated state that our next phase is to cross the barrier itself. Any questions? All right, let's move on. We're going to be going over, in chapter 4, we're going to be talking a lot about shells. We're going to be talking about wicked, righteous, and the relationships between them. Why is it all needed? So the first thing is to understand what is the difference between reality and perception. So the idea is that we normally learn about reality where we've got, we started in Sof, right? And then we went through Adam Kadmon, pre-Adol man, then through Nukudim, which is sort of the posterior for Atzilut, emanation. Then you got Bria, creation, Yitzira, formation, Asiya, action. And then finally, at the bottom of it, Olam Hazeh, this world, which is the Metziut, reality. The thing is that when we're learning it, we're actually learning it as Tfisat Metziut, which is perception. So instead of talking about it, how we went from Ein Sof all the way to this world, we're actually going to talk about it, how we go in our perception from Ein Sof to this world. And when we reach the end, this is called end of correction. When we have an alignment, an equivalence between reality and perception. So our reality is currently always at this world. The idea is in our perception to reach this world as well. And then we'll have that equivalence of form. And then you could say we'll have equivalence of form with the equivalence of matter. And then the idea is that we're able to actually handle reality as it is instead of constantly wanting to change it. Any questions on that?
So basically, the perception changes means that we go from thinking we're an individual to thinking we are first, well, the BB group, then the BB group plus the system concept group, then like all humanity, like there's nothing outside of me.
So yeah, you're expanding. That's already before the barrier, right? So you're just talking about like passing the barriers here, right, between Ein Sof and preordinal man. So you're going to be going from thinking you're just a specific person, you only have to, you could say, you're only manifesting your own life, to understanding that you're actually manifesting your entire reality outside of you as well. So the whole reality outside of you becomes inside, and you understand that everything in your subconscious is basically manifesting reality with all the people and everything. So the idea is that each person comes to a point where he understands that he's the only person in the world. And then all he's dealing is with these two qualities of bestowal and reception.
So basically, when I gather a discernment from one of the friends, I shouldn't make it my own. Like it's not that, oh, that's a discernment made from Johanan. No, it's in me. Johanan is in me.
No, you should. You should say that Johanan is in you, and that the creator is that you as the creator are talking to yourself through other people. So you're not seeing it as a person outside of you talking to you as if there's two people. Rather, you're talking to yourself through another person.
So that would be like the connection in phase 3, not just like a feeling of bestowal in connection, but a connection in which I collect discernments of what seems to be others, but I start feeling they are in me, and this is the connection in the third stage.
You start it in phase 3, but it ends in phase 4. So it's a gradual growth, right? It's not like you just finish it in phase 3. You finalize it in 4.2. You finalize it between that state of responsibility, which is basically owning the will to receive, and moving then to own the store, which is 4.3. So between 4.2 and 4.3.
What do you mean finalizing? Like
it's a gradual process. You're not going to do it. You're not going to do it in one go, right? You're going to. It's a gradual process. You basically start in phase 3 to start doing that, and you finish it in 4.2. So from 3.1 to 4.2, it's a gradual process. All right, let's move on. Righteous versus wicked. So the idea is that there's two states. You can either be in a righteous state or in a wicked state. The righteous state is when you've got alignment between the filling, or you could say between the light and the vessel. So a righteous person, for example, if they have a physical reality filling, for example, let's say food, and they're expecting a physical reality filling, that's fine. For example, your wife makes you a great meal, you eat it, you enjoy it, that's fine, you're righteous. Then you have a spiritual perception power, light, and you expect it to be a spiritual perception power in a vessel. So for example, you're, let's say, learning about internal power, and you get to advance to a higher degree, that means you're righteous as well, because you're happy that the light that reforms that's coming in is advancing you. That's called righteous, when you've got alignment between what are you getting in the light and what you're expecting in the vessel. Wicked is when you've got the opposite problem. You've got the problem where you're trying to use a spiritual perception power light as a physical reality filling vessel. Or you're trying to use a physical reality filling light in a spiritual perception power vessel. For example, you're trying to advance spiritually, right, and expecting it to have physical results. You're like, I advance, why am I not getting more money? Or I advance, why am I still fighting with my wife? Right? So you're expecting that a light that reforms should have given you a physical filling, and it won't. The same problem is the other way around. What if let's say you want food, right, or sex, or drugs, or whatever, and you're expecting it to fill an internal emptiness of lack of power, right? So, for example, you overeat because you're expecting food to solve your spiritual problems. It won't. And the same thing is if you're trying to use physical connection between people to solve your emptiness of power. It's the wrong filling. If you're trying to use connection to advance spiritually, that's fine. But if you're trying to use connection to solve your physical problems, it just won't work.
Can you go back to the previous slide, please?
Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
No problem. Let me give an example again. If you're going, I'll give a corporeal example. Let's say you're going to a restaurant, you're going to a meaty restaurant, and you're expecting there to be cheese. Right? So you've got a misalignment between what you're expecting, which is cheese, and where you are in reality, which is you're at a meat restaurant. Right? So that is called wicked. You're wicked towards the restaurant because you're blaming the restaurant when the problem is not the restaurant. And the problem is not your desire. The problem is the alignment between them. Right? And that's called wicked. When it's written that a person is wicked when they're not saying that creation is good. And they're saying there's bad in creation. But the reason someone says that is because they've got a misappropriation of the filling, right, with power. They're mixing between them. They're expecting, let's say, spiritual connection to make, physical peace, right? Or they're expecting physical food to deal with their emptiness or their depression of lack of power. That emptiness, that internal emptiness that we've all felt, where we feel that we have no control over our lives. Right? So as long as you're eating food for food, let's say someone's at endocorrection, right? So when they're eating physical food, they're eating physical food for physical filling. Their body needs food, they give it what it needs. When they need internal power, they know where to get internal power. They connect with their friends, they learn more material, they're internalizing new concepts, cleaning new concepts. That gives them advancement in their internal power. So there's no longer a misappropriation, a disconnection between what is for which vessel.
Just keep in our framework that anything I do in corporeality is only for that. It's for my corporeal life. Nothing I can do in my corporeal life, even the actions, even coming here in Zoom, is not a spiritual act. It's an actual physical act. And I can't, okay. Now the spiritual perception is that, and that would be righteous. The spiritual aspect is that I discern. When I discern internally, at any moment, any time, I will gain in spiritual power. So it's only my discernments, no matter what I do, where I'm at, and that's completely separate from my physical actions. It's only internal discernments that raise my spiritual power.
Exactly. So for example, someone could come to a Zoom meeting, come to all the Zoom meetings, not collect discernments, and then afterwards complain why they're not advancing. And that's because they thought that by doing a physical action of coming to a Zoom session, they should be advancing. Or they went to a workshop, that means they should advance. It's like, no, just going to a workshop won't make you advance. It's what you use the workshop for. How are you collecting the discernments? That will decide your spiritual growth, not how many workshops you've gone to. So you could have two people, one who goes through a few sessions and advances very fast. You could have somebody else who comes to all the sessions and still hasn't advanced. And the difference between them is because one is collecting the discernments, even though they're just in a few sessions, they're collecting loads of discernments, and they know that only the discernments is what advances them and not their physical appearance in a meeting. And the other person is thinking that because they're in the physical meeting, that should mean that they're advancing. So they're mixing it up between their corporeality and their spirituality. And then they blame the sessions for the lack of advancement. That's called wicked.
So when we're having corporeal issues, granted those corporeal issues are for our physical, whatever, our house, our work, the traffic on the road, but if we are discerning during that entire time about whatever our spiritual, whatever our discernments are related to, what is this showing me? How is this situation, helping me progress in my level of perception, spiritual perception, that is also righteous, and that is also a spiritual increase of power.
Exactly. The idea is that there's no connection between them, right? Like corporeality, you could say, is setting a framework, an environment for you, right? Like if you don't go to the toilet, it's going to be very hard for you to, let's say, discern, because those desires are just going to be flashing before your eyes. So the idea is to deal with them, put them aside, and then you can actually discern, right? But it's not that if I go to the toilet, I'm going to be advancing spiritually.
And this is how religion has helped so much of humanity fall into wickedness, because spirituality teaches that if you follow these physical laws, you'll attain a level of spirituality, and that's totally wicked.
Exactly, but the idea is that you could say it was aligned to where they are. So whether they would have done the actions or not, they would have stayed where they are anyway. So it's not that the actions, it's not that the problem is not religion, right? Religion is keeping them where they are because that's where they want to stay. So you could say there's alignment, that what people wanted is actions. They had, because they were in a state of wickedness, right? So the idea is to give them what they expected. Because they were muddling up spirituality with corporeality, they were given those physical actions to make them think they'll do spiritual growth, because that's what they wanted. It's like a solution for, it's, you give a product by its demand, right? So there was demand for, that's the idea that they fell into exile. So they mixed up, exile means they mixed up between corporeality and spirituality. The solution was, they're not going to, they're meant to be basically in exile for 2,000 years. What are they going to do? Well, you can't just leave them hanging. So what you do is you give them spiritual actions, corporalized, and tell them that it will help them spiritually, when it won't. And because they've got it mixed up, they won't even know the better, right? They won't know that, if you go to a religious person, they don't feel that their corporeal actions don't give them spirituality, because for them, spirituality, they think is corporeality. So even if you wanted to teach them the right way, they're not ready for it. And those which are ready for it, they advance. And those which aren't ready for it, don't advance. So the problem is not religion. Religion is, so you could say, helping people which are stuck where they are, not actually holding them back. Again, because if you give someone a change in reality, that's not going to change their perception. So it is, if someone grows in their perception, religion is no longer a barrier for them. So the problem was never the religion that was given to them in their reality. The problem was the lack of their maturity in their perception.
Thanks, that's clear.
All right, let's move on. Chapter 4. Difference between purity and impurity. After the Tzimtzum restriction and the Masach screen that was placed on the will to receive, it became unfit to be a vessel for reception. It left the system of Kedusha, literally holiness, and the Or Chozer, returning light, serves in its place as a vessel for reception. And the Kli vessel of the will to receive was given to the impure system. Number 16. Since the Tzimtzum restriction and the Masach screen were placed on that Kli vessel called will to receive, it was cancelled and departed from the pure system, and the Or Chozer, returning light, became the vessel of reception in its place. Know that this is the entire difference between the pure Abiyah and impure Abiyah. The vessels of reception of the pure Abiyah come from the Or Choser, returning light, that is established on Ishtafut Tzura, equivalence of form, with Ein Sof, boundless, while the impure Abiyah use the will to receive that was restricted, being the opposite Tzura form of Ein Sof, boundless, that makes them separated and cut off from the life of lives, namely Ein Sof, boundless. So the idea is that you can look at this two ways. You can either look at it, what happened in reality, or you can look at this, what happened in perception. If you look at it from reality, once the will to receive had a screen on it, basically the tzimtzum, the first restriction that happened, the idea was that you could no longer, when it reached at the end, it reached all the way to this world, you could no longer use reality for spiritual advancement. Right? And that's why it's saying that if you're trying to use Ol Chozel, and this actually will come to the idea of religion, if you use Ol Chozel, which is returning light, that means that you're trying to serve, let's say, your teacher. Right? That was the only way to actually use reality. Right? So you could use reality by serving lover friends or by serving your teacher. Right? Serving your society, your spiritual society. That was the only place for you to do any kind of spiritual work until now. Now it's a little different. But until now, in the exile, for example, that was the only way for people to basically do any kind of advancement, by annulling to the teacher and having lover friends. And that's what it says here about that after the tzimtzum, after that restriction, when we fell to this world, which means into the exile, that impure Abiyah, the only way to actually advance, which means pure Abiyah, is by using returning light, which means bestowing to the creator, or bestowing to someone on a higher degree than you, which is normally the teacher. Right? Then that's about reality. Now, we're at the state where we're advancing through perception. We can no longer advance through reality. Now we have to advance through perception. In perception, you're actually going to be using that will to receive very heavily until you cross the barrier. And then you're not going to be using the will to receive to advance anymore. Rather, you're going to be using the returning light, which what it becomes after the barrier, it becomes, instead of this desire to receive bestowal, now you already have bestowal. Now what you're doing is advancing with bestowal itself, not with the will to receive. So you have the will to receive always active, but now you're advancing with the will to bestow, not with the will to receive. Humanity has no will to bestow. Humanity feeds on the leavings of the klipot shells and thus uses the will to receive as they do. Number 17. Now you can understand the root of the corruption that was incorporated in the thought of creation, which is to delight his creatures. After the concatenation of the 5 general olamot worlds, Adam Kadmon, primordial man, and Abiyah, the klipot shells appeared as well in the 4 impure olamot worlds, Abiyah, because one before the other had God made them. In that state, the turbid corporeal guf body is set before us, about which is written, man's heart is evil from his youth. It is so because its entire substance from its youth comes from the leavings of the klipot shells. The essence of klipot shells and impurity is the tzura form of wanting only to receive that they have. They have nothing of the will to bestow. They are found to be opposite him, for he has no will to receive whatsoever, and all he wants is to bestow and delight. For that reason, the klipot shells are called dead, because they are opposite from the life of lives, and therefore severed from him, without any of his shefa abundance. And we'll read this in the perception. The idea is that notice what it says, man's heart is evil from his youth, not from when he's born. The idea is that youth is basically called phase 2. So the idea is that when you're in phase 2, man's heart is evil, which what that means is man's heart is immature, right? Because he's wanting bestowal. This is talking about a state where he actually wants bestowal. If he doesn't even want bestowal, then he's not even talked about, right? So this is talking about where he wants bestowal, but he has immature concepts of what is bestowal, right? That's why it's man's heart is evil. It's immature from his youth, right? And they don't understand, that's why they're in a shell. They don't understand that they don't have nothing of the will to bestow. They think they have the will to bestow, but they don't. And the reason they don't is because their will to bestow that they think that they have is a corporeal will to bestow. and not a spiritual will to bestow. Right? And that's why they're opposite him. They're opposite them because they think that they're closer to him, but they're actually opposite. Because the Creator has no will to receive whatsoever. That means that he uses reality to grow us spiritually, you could say. And all he wants is to bestow and delight, which means he wants to control the will to receive. For that reason, the klipot, the shells, are called dead, because they are the opposite of the life of lives. The idea is that the Creator controls the will to receive. So until you reach that point where you're going to control the will to receive, right, and have that equivalence of form, then you're considered dead. And therefore you're severed from him, from the Creator, without any of his shefa and abundance. You don't have any of that light. You don't have any of that power to manipulate your will to receive. Fake and real altruism. The guf body, which is also fed on the leavings of the klipot, is also severed from life and is filled with filth because of the will to receive and not to bestow imprinted in it. Its desire is always open to receive the entire world into its stomach. Thus, the evil are called dead during their lives because the shenutzoah change of form in their shorish root, when they have nothing of the form of bestowal, severs them from him, and they literally become dead. Although it seems that the evil too have the form of bestowal when they give charity, etc., it has been said about them in the Zohar, any grace that they do for themselves. For their primary aim is for themselves and their own glory. However, the righteous perform Torah mitzvot, not in order to be rewarded, but to bestow contentment upon their Maker, thus purify their guf body and invert their vessels of reception to the form of bestowal. It is as our holy Rav, the holy Ari, said, I did not enjoy even in my little finger. Ketuvot 104. That makes them completely adherent with him, for their tzurah form is identical to their Maker, without any shenutzoah change of form. Our sages said about the verse, say unto Zion, thou art my people, that you are with me in partnership. This means that the righteous are partners with the Creator, since he started creation and they finish it by turning the vessels of reception into bestowal. So again, it continues what we talked about beforehand, of how they're severed from any spiritual life, because they're filled with filth, which means they're filled with immature concepts, dirty concepts. And because they don't actually have bestowal, which means they don't actually want bestowal, they don't actually want to control the will to receive, they just want to give charity, which means they only want to basically bring world peace. And it says any grace that they do for themselves. Because what they're trying to do is their goal is to bestow to their physical form and not bestow to their spiritual form. But the righteous that understand this and they perform the Torah mitzvot not in order to be rewarded with physical pleasure, but rather to advance spiritually, which means bestow contentment upon their Maker, the Creator inside of them. Thus they purify their desire, the guf body is desire, and then they invert their vessels of reception to the form of bestowal. So first what they do is they build their vessels of reception, and then using the screen, they invert them to the form of bestowal.
What do you mean the righteous wants to control their will, their desire to receive?
So the idea is that you've got two desires. You've got the will to bestow and the will to receive. What the Creator does, the will to bestow, it controls the will to receive. The will to receive receives. The will to bestow bestows to the will to receive. Bestowing means controlling. We don't normally think of bestowal as a controlling element, but it is. The idea, that's why we say there's none else besides him. Why? Because him, the Creator, controls us, controls the will to receive within us. So it means the will to bestow within us controls the will to receive within us. That's that connection. The receiving receives, the bestowing bestows, gives, controls. When you're, for example, let's say, even in reality, if I give you a bottle of water, I've decided you're going to get a bottle of water and not a bottle of champagne, right? That means when you're giving charity, when you're giving to the poor, you're actually controlling them because you're dictating what they're going to have. So for example, what sometimes happens is let's say we give to the poor charity, We give them money, and then they use it for something that we didn't intend them to, and we feel cheated. Why do we feel cheated? Because we want to control what they're using that charity for. So if we give them, for example, charity to pay their rent, and they go and buy drugs, that's what they wanted, right? But we want to control them without knowing so, right? That's why it's called a shell, because we don't understand that we're actually wanting to control them. We think we just want to be good for them, as if we're not taking ourselves into account. But we are, because we're dictating, we're saying, no, I don't want you to buy drugs, I want you to pay for rent, because I think rent is better, right? But let's say, for example, they're feeling stressed, and they don't currently need money for rent, they need money for marijuana so they can relax themselves. We don't like marijuana, so we complain and say, no, I gave you that money so you pay your rent, not so you buy marijuana. So we don't understand that we're actually trying to control them instead of just thinking that we're giving to them with no self-benefit. That is, if you're trying to receive and you're aware that you're receiving, that's fine. If you're trying to bestow and you are bestowing, that's also fine. The shell is when you're trying to think that you're bestowing and you're receiving, or you're trying to receive and you're bestowing. That's the shell. Let's continue. You want to ask something? Okay. Only the will to receive was created. The entire reality is contained in Ein Sof, boundless, and extends existence from existence. Only the will to receive is new and extends existence from absence. Number 18. Know that the existence from absence innovation that the Creator invented in this creation, which our sages said he generated existence from absence, applies only to the tzura, form, of the desire to enjoy that is imprinted in every creature. Nothing more was renewed in creation, and this is the meaning of I form the light and create darkness. The Ramban interprets the word creator as the indication of renewal, meaning something that did not exist before. You see that it does not say create light, because there is no innovation in it by the way of existence from absence. That is because the aura light and everything contained in the aura light, all the pleasant sensations and conceptions in the world extend existence from existence. This means that they are already contained in him and are therefore not an innovation. That is why it is written, form the light, indicating that it is not innovation and creation in him. That's the idea that the Creator, the will to bestow, always existed. So it's existence from existence. The will to receive was created when a thought of creation was to bestow to the creatures. So instead of, which means to raise them to his degree. In order to do that, he first had to create them on the lowest degree so he could give them. Right? It's like if someone's rich and he wants to give to someone, he basically needs to have the opportunity of a poor person to make them rich. So the question is, what do you do if there's no one poor? What you have to do is make someone poor, and then you can make them rich. And that's exactly what happened here. The Creator wanted to give, there was no one to give to, so he created something to give to on the lowest degree, which is us, before the barrier, and then we can rise to his degree. And that's the whole game here.
I always get confused when it says existence from absence, meaning there wasn't anything there, something created out of nothing. And then is that the way it's supposed to be defined, basically?
Yeah, so basically it was not there before, and now it is.
And so existence from existence, meaning it was there before, so we're just creating more of it or a better version of it?
No, it was always there. The will to bestow was always there.
Will to bestow, meaning existence from existence, meaning it's just there. It's just been there.
Yeah, there was always power. There wasn't always filling.
So basically, the words existence and absence are just saying of if that specific thing existed or not, basically.
Yes.
Meaning, right. Okay. So exists from absence, meaning it wasn't there before, and now it exists.
Exactly.
So can we say too then that I think we talked about this before, in where we are, a physician of cancer is a physician of cancer because he desired to be a physician of cancer, so cancer had to be created for that physician of cancer.
Exactly, and we talked about this, how you could say, what causes obesity? Is it because people are becoming more fat, or is it because there are more diet plans out there? Like each time someone creates a diet plan, he's basically wanting for there to be people which are obese so they can go through a diet, right? What's the point of having a diet plan if there's no one to give it to? So that's the idea, is that when we actually create all these plans for dealing with deficiencies, we actually create deficiencies. And this is not a problem, it doesn't say, oh, then maybe we should shut down all the diet plans. No, once it's already done, first of all. But the idea is that the same thing is with spirituality. The more people that cross the barrier, the more people that advance spirituality, the more there will be deficiencies in the world for people that actually want spirituality. The idea is that when a product of spirituality exists, then you have people that need it accordingly.
It's a pretty powerful concept.
Yeah, we don't normally think of it like that. That the people that are actually creating cancer in the world are people that are researching how to solve cancer, because if someone's researching cancer, he needs money to support his research. So he needs people with cancer in order to get money to support his research. Because if no one's got cancer, no one's going to support the research for cancer.
So basically, the desire is what creates all of these things, even diseases.
Yeah, our desire creates opportunity.
Our desire creates everything.
Yes. Darkness. However, it is said of the darkness, which contains every unpleasant sensation and conception, and create darkness. That is because he invented them literally existence from absence. It does not exist in his reality whatsoever, but was renewed now. The shorish of all of them is the tzura form of the will to enjoy that is contained in his orot lights that expand from him. In the beginning, it is only darker than the Or Elyon upper light, and is therefore called darkness compared to the Or light. But finally, the klipot shells, sitra achra, the other side, and the wicked hang down and appear because of it, which severs them entirely from the life of lives. This is the meaning of the verse, and her legs descend unto death. Her legs indicate the end of something. And he says that they are the legs of Malchut, which is the will to enjoy that exists in the pashtut expansion of his Or light. In the end, death extends from her to the sitra achra, the other side, and those who are fed and follow the sitra achra, the other side. Right? So basically what it's saying is that how can there be darkness in the world if there's only light, if there's only power? So basically what happened was power went through multiple algorithms, you could say, and in the end became filling. The thing is that filling is not power. So if someone's attached to filling, for example, filling in reality, and it can be food, sex, family, money, honor, knowledge, connection with other human beings, etc., those are called filling, therefore they're not power. And therefore they're separated from life. Life is actually power. So if someone is after filling, they don't need power for that. They don't need life for that. So for example, if someone's connected to an IV in the hospital, they can still have food, right? They don't even have to want food. They can just be given it, through an injection, right? So you don't need life, you could say, in order to get filling. But the idea is that if you want power, then you need life. Like we say, oh, look at him. He's full of life. That means he's full of power. He can do things, right? But filling itself does not require power. And therefore, because they don't want it, they don't get it. Pleasure and pain. Pleasure and pain. Because we are branches that extend from Ein Sof boundless, the things that are in our Shorish root are pleasurable to us, and those that are not in our Shorish root are burdensome and painful. 19. Since this Shinitzua, change of form of the will to receive, must be in the creatures, for how else would they extend from him and switch from being creator to being creatures? This is only possible by the above-mentioned Shinitzua, change of form. Furthermore, this Tzura form of the will to enjoy is the primary essence of creation, the axis of the thought of creation. It is also the measure of the delight and pleasure, as we have said above, for which it is called place. Thus, how can we say about it that it is darkness and expands to the Bechina discernment of death? Because it creates a separation and interruption from the life of lives in the receiving Tachtonim, low ones. We should also understand what is the great worry that comes to the receivers because of the Shinutsuah, change of form from his Atzmut essence, and why the great wrath. In order to explain this subtle matter sufficiently, we must first know the origin of all the pleasures and sufferings that are felt in our world. Know this: every branch has an equal nature to its Shorish root. Therefore, every conduct in the Shorish root is desired and loved and coveted by the branch as well. And any matter that is not in the Shorish root, the branch, too, does not tolerate and hates. Notice that desire is called place. That's why place in Hebrew is hamakom, right? And so when we say the Creator is in every place, we're saying the Creator is in every desire. That means it's controlling every desire.
Desires are an indication of where we are, what place we are.
Exactly.
So here all moralistic things are washed away. Like a person in the most corrected state, he can still be a sex addict who is very happy that he can fulfill his desires thanks to this power. Like there's no morals.
Well, the thing is that he probably won't be like that because normally the reason why people, let's say, sex addicts is because they're trying to use sex to fill their emptiness of power. So if he has power, he won't be needing that to be a sex addict anymore. Right? Think of it like this: the whole idea of when we do bad stuff is normally because we're trying to use filling to cover a sense of power. For example, let's say someone drives in front of us. Right? They drive in front of us and we get mad at them. Why are we mad at them? Because we think that they did something to us. That's already a shell, because there's no one else besides him. Why are you blaming that driver that he went in front of you when you wanted him to be in front of you, right? It doesn't mean you can't go then, around him as well. But the idea is that the anger itself, and normally when we do bad things, there's no more anger involved. And that means that we're not living in that state of purity. We don't have power. We think the other person took away our power. But the idea with true power, no one can take it away from you but yourself. So why are you blaming that somebody else took power away from you? So for example, let's say someone's in a state of power, and then something in reality happens, and they lose their power. They think that reality took away their power. No. Reality did not take away their power. They took away their own power. And if they think that reality took away their power, then they're in a shell. Because the only one who took away their power is their own self, and not anybody else. So the idea is to actually use situations, deficiencies in reality where things aren't working well, and use them to increase power. Because if you actually made everything in reality perfect, you would have no need for power. And that is why we have all the pain in the world, is to actually bring someone to the point of power where he can be stronger than those situations. And then there's no need for the situations to be bad anymore, since they've fulfilled their purpose. So the only reason why bad happens to a person is because they haven't reached the power that they need. And if they reach the power that they need, there's no need for that physical pain anymore.
That comment to use the in comfortable situations to increase power. That used to confuse me, but let me know if I'm wrong, but clearer now for me is that it means that I'm discerning why did I create this situation, and not necessarily wanting the answer, thinking that something down the road would be different. Somebody needs to mute. Daniel, mute, please.
Sorry.
It was static, but that doing the discernments during that time, and that will, if you focus on using those discernments, why did that happen? Why did I put that in? What is it blocking me from, or what does it mean spiritually that's going on inside of me? What picture is it for me? That's all increasing my internal power, and it also gets in the way of you being angry. It's like a check almost.
Exactly, because the idea is while you're doing discernments, you don't have time to be angry. So normally people get angry when they basically don't have time for discernments. Nature is close to our root. This is an unbreakable law that abides between every branch and its shoresh root, because he is the shoresh root of all his creations. Everything in him that extends from him directly is pleasurable and pleasant to us, for our nature is close to our shoresh root. Also, everything that is not in him, does not extend directly from him, but is rather opposite to creation itself, will be against our nature and will be hard for us to tolerate. For example, we love rest and vehemently hate motion, to the point that we do not make even a single movement if not to find rest. This is because our shoresh root is motionless and restful. There is no motion in him whatsoever. For that reason, it is against our nature and hated by us. In much the same way, we love wisdom, power, wealth, and all the virtues, because they are contained in him, who is our shoresh root. We hate their oppositeness, such as folly, weakness, poverty, ignominy, and so on, because they are not at all in our shoresh root, which makes them despicable and loathsome to us. And you could say that if someone who's in a shell does not love wisdom and does not love power and does not love wealth. So the idea is that they're in the Creator. We're meant to have wisdom, power, wealth, and all the virtues because they are contained in him. So the more equivalence of form we have with him, and the more we get to express of him, we're meant to have wisdom, power, wealth, and etc. And we're not meant to be folly. We're not meant to have weakness. We're not meant to be in poverty. Direct and indirect manipulation. We should still examine how is there any hamshacha attraction that does not come directly from him, but from the opposite of creation itself. It is like a wealthy man who called upon a poor fellow, fed him and gave him drinks and silver and gold every single day, and each day more than the day before. There are two different things that you will find that this poor fellow felt regarding these wonderful gifts from the rich. On the one hand, he tasted immeasurable pleasure by the multitude of his gifts. On the other hand, it became hard for him to tolerate the plenitude of the benefit, and he was ashamed upon receiving it. This matter brought him intolerance due to the plenitude of the presents showered on him every time. It is certain that his pleasure from the gifts extended directly from the wealthy benefactor, but the impatience that he felt in the presents did not come from the wealthy benefactor, but from the very essence of the receiver. The shame awakened in him by the reason of the reception and the free gift. The truth is that this too comes from the rich man, but indirectly. Right? So the idea is that when the Creator gives us light, that actually gives us pain. Right? So the question is the Creator giving pain? No, he isn't. He's giving us light. But he built us, right, with such an immature perception that we feel that light is pain. So God directly gives light, but indirectly gives pain. The solution, of course, which doesn't work in a corporeal story, but the whole thing that we're doing when we say equivalence of form is we're taking a sense of self and shifting it from the will to receive to the will to bestow. So instead of me giving contentment to the Creator as if I'm the will to receive and the Creator is the will to bestow, I change my sense of self to the will to bestow. Then I am the Creator. I am the rich man. I am the benefactor, the wealthy benefactor, the bestower. And I have a will to receive that I'm giving to. But that's the whole correction from when we're born until end of correction, is we do that shift from sense of self, from the will to receive to the will to bestow in potential when we cross the barrier, and we reach actuality at end of correction. Will to receive is not in our root. Because the will to receive is not in our root, we feel shame and intolerance in it. Our sages wrote that in order to correct that, he has prepared for us labor and Torah and mitzvah precepts in this world to invert the will to receive into a will to bestow. Number 20. We learn from all the above that all the forms that extended to us indirectly present a difficulty for our patience and are against our nature. By that we will see that the new tzurah form that has been formed in the receiver, namely the will to enjoy, is not really any lower or lesser than him. Moreover, this is the primary axis of his creation. Without that, there would be no creation at all. However, the receiver, who is the carrier of that tzurah form, feels the intolerance due to his self, meaning because this tzurah form is not in his shorish root. Thus, we have succeeded to comprehend the answer of our sages, who said that this world was created because one who eats that which is not one's own is afraid to look upon one's face. It is seemingly perplexing, but now their words feel pleasant to us, for they refer to the matter of shinui tzurah, change of form, of the will to enjoy, that is by necessity present in the neshomot souls. This is so because one who eats which is not one's own is afraid to look upon one's face. It's exactly what we talked about beforehand. We have to change that sense of self from the branch, which is the will to receive, to the root, which is the will to bestow. The problem is not in the will to receive itself. That is creation. No will to receive, you're dead. So the solution is not to get rid of your will to receive, but to change your sense of self from the form of the will to receive, which means in the intention in order to receive, to change it to the form of the will to bestow, which means the intention in order to bestow. To change your sense of self from the ego to the creator. But you do that change by using your ego to get there.
And this is like the descent and ascent. So a descent is when I identify myself with the will to receive, and an ascent is when I identify myself with the internal power.
Well, the idea is that before the barrier, what actually happens depends on your state, but sometimes it can be the opposite. Sometimes your descent can be where you feel your ego, right? And your will, and your ascent is when you feel your power. But mostly what happens before the barrier is the opposite, where your descent is actually where you feel your lack of power. Your ascent is when you're in your filling of the ego.
So when it says that, namely the will to enjoy is not really any lower or lesser than him, what is it trying to imply there, really?
It's saying the Creator made the will to receive. There's no problem with the will to receive itself. The problem is, where's your sense of self? When we're dealing with the whole thing of shells and evil and good, all that, we're dealing with the sense of self. Where is your sense of self? Is your sense of self as the will to enjoy, as the will to receive filling, or as the will to bestow power? If your sense of self is the will to bestow power, that's good. If your sense of self is the will to receive filling, that's bad.
Then what is the correction of the will to receive?
So it's correction of the intention.
Okay.
It's the form, not the matter. We're not trying to change the matter, we're trying to change the form. Practice makes perfect.
And so basically the method is love of friends, or getting discernments from the friends, and like accumulating these that everyone is inside of me, and my desire to become him.
Yes.
to achieve this. And this is love of friends.
Yeah, and the idea is to go from love of friends to love of the Creator.
Because like without the discernments from the friends, it's impossible. Like one want to pass the barrier. Yeah.
Well, the problem with if the reason why you can't reach, why you can't pass the barrier by yourself is because anything you're going to read or understand, I would say anything you understand inside of yourself is always going to be a result of your state. So the results of your state can never go to a higher state. So the only way you can reach a high state is either by having books, right, and having friends. The reason why books are not enough is because who says you're understanding them correctly? There's no conversation with a book. You think you understand what it's talking about, and that's it. End of story. You're still stuck in your state again, right? So the only way for you actually advance is to read the material with the friends, get discernments to allow you to actually get to a higher state of perception. So for example, there are people on both extremes. You've either got people which they do kumbaya with the friends and they get nothing because they're not actually collecting discernments of how to become the creator. You've got the opposite extreme where they're by themselves, they're learning the books, they're trying to do everything by themselves, but they don't understand what they don't understand, and therefore they're stuck in their current state of perception as well. The only way to actually grow is that combination between the books and the friends by collecting those discernments to actually grow to become the creator, to change the sense of self from the will to receive to the will to bestow. Wicked versus righteous. The evil are destroyed with double destruction, and the righteous inherit double. 21. Come and see that the evil are destroyed with double destruction, for they hold both ends of the rope. This world is created with the want and emptiness of the good shefa abundance. In order to acquire possessions, we need movement. However, it is known that the profusion of movement hurts humans, for it is an indirect hamshacha, attraction from his essence. However, it is also impossible to remain devoid of possessions and good. That too is in contrast with their shorish, root, which is filled with goodness. Consequently, we choose the torment of movement in order to acquire the possessions. However, because all their possessions are for themselves alone, and he who has a single portion wants a double portion, one finally dies with only half one's desire in one's hand. In the end, they suffer from both sides, from the increase of pain due to the multiplicity of movement, and from the regret at not having the possessions that they need to fill their empty half. The righteous inherit double in their eretz land. Once they turn the will to receive into the will to bestow, and receive what they receive in order to bestow, then they inherit double. Not only do they attain the perfection of the pleasures and possessions, but they also acquire the equivalence of form with their maker. Thus, they come to true dvikut, literally adhesion, and they are therefore at rest, and the shefa abundance pours to them effortlessly, by itself, without making a single movement. Right? So, remember, think of evil as immature. So if you have an immature concept of bestowal, you're constantly going to be running after corporeal fillings to soothe your emptiness of power. Right? And therefore, you're always going to be running after things that are not going to fill you. And you're going to die with emptiness. Right?
Immature concept of bestowal is the concept of bestowal in phase 2?
Yes. That's why phase 2 is called evil, because the idea is that they have immature concepts of bestowal, but they don't know that they have immature concepts of bestowal. If someone knows that he has immature concepts of bestowal and is trying to clean them, it's like that article of Shammati, who gives wisdom to the wise. And then he asks them, why give wisdom to the wise? Only giving wisdom to the fools? It is no. Someone who wants to learn wisdom will become wise. So we call him by what he is at the end. That's why if someone is cleaning their concepts even before the barrier, they're called righteous. But you're like, they're not righteous yet. Yeah, but they will be righteous, therefore they're called now righteous. The reason why the wicked are called wicked is because they are where they want to be. And they don't actually want to change. And therefore they want to stay with their immature concepts. They don't actually want to clean concepts. And that is why they're called wicked. They don't want power. They just want filling. But they're trying to use filling to fill their emptiness of power. It's trying to reach power, receive power, to fill that emptiness of power and become the power, which is reaching that adhesion with creative difficulty. What they think in phase 2, they think the creator bestows, we can bestow, but they want to bestow in the will to receive instead of what the creator does, which is bestows with the will to bestow. So instead of trying to get the will to bestow, they want to already bestow with the will to receive. And they don't want to feel that lack, that emptiness of the will to bestow, and then actually work towards getting that will to bestow. How? By using the will to receive, because that's all they have to use to get there. Any final questions?
I wanted to say I like the slide. There's a lot of information, and I don't have any questions yet because there's so much that I'm still trying to discern here.
Yeah, there is a lot of content here. It's a long chapter.
You could say the will to receive and will to bestow. You could say desire to receive, desire to bestow, or intention to receive, intention to bestow. Which one?
What was the question again?
The will to receive, is that the intention to receive, or the desire to receive? Meaning with your matter.
When it's talking here about the will to receive, that you invert to the will to bestow, it's talking about the form, so it's talking about the intention, not about the action, not about physicality, it's talking about spirituality. You could say physicality is the action, and spirituality is the intention. Perception is intention, and the action is physicality. Reality, corporeality.
Really be careful because it can be slippery at a time, because when you're talking about inverting the will to receive to the will to bestow, at least for a time in this process, you tend to want to get back into that accidental track. Well, I call it accidental, of actually using corporeal actions as if they're the will to bestow, or think that, oh geez, I keep losing it now. I can't even think of it wrongly anymore. Yeah, just inverting it incorrectly. There's when you say those words, they say one thing, but there's a way that you can invert those incorrectly.
Definitely. But it is, yes, go for it.
Is there such thing as spiritual reception? Like this is and receive what they receive in order to. What are they're receiving? Is that a spiritual, or is that purely?
If you're trying to receive the quality of bestowal, right, then that's spiritual reception, which is good.
You want to receive the spiritual, the quality of bestowal in order to bestow.
Exactly.
And Gabriel's question just brought it to mind. It's saying that you receive that to help you get to spirituality, that you receive something in the physical because that's supposed to help you attain your a higher spiritual level. That is the slippery slope. That's what we have to be careful not to consider. That's an incorrect discernment.
Exactly. It is you're wanting to receive spirituality with discernments, which is in your perception, not by having a corporeal better life, you could say.
I have a question in regards to the last paragraph there, and to the example of when you go to a meat house looking for cheese. So this last example, if I'm understanding it correctly, is it saying, well, even though you've bumped heads of always trying to get the cheese and getting to the meat house, with this new perception, with these through the discernments, not only will you find this new reality, but you'll also find a way to get to the place where the cheese was. So you're going to win doubly? Is that what it is?
Exactly. You're going to go to a cheese restaurant for cheese and go to a meat restaurant for meat, instead of constantly going to a meat restaurant for cheese and complaining, why is the meat restaurant not fulfilling what you wanted?
And that will be the secondary reward. That's going to be the side effect, because what the reality that the perception that you are going to be in is actually what actually allowed for that to happen.
You could say that when your perception is corrected, then you're going to know how to use reality correct as well. So we lose both. We lose doubly when we move forward. What we're doing, we're doubly losing. One, we're not giving our perception what it needs, and we're not giving our reality what it needs. Right? So we lose double. When you're righteous, when you basically reach that, when you complete it and reach that inner correction, then you're going to start be giving your spiritual needs what they need and give your corporeal needs what they need. So you're going to give yourself a nice big house for your corporeal needs, and you're going to be empowering others, cleaning concepts, manipulating will to receives for your spiritual filling.
Got it. Thank you.
I think we'll stop here and enter the after party.